better. I need to read it. Afternoon on the 21st of January. It's a Friday, and I'm reading out of Lydia. I'm now at chapter 36. Lydia is the story about a reincarnation, an incarnation of a little girl born in March 2012. And we are well into the story, which was starting originally with Bliss After Life, which is book 1. This is book 2, and I need the light. Chapter 36. Young gathering at the Refuge. Ben, Faye, and the whole family had got back to the Refuge from their seaside trip, and the evening was spent talking about Melanie's pregnancy. Lydia was handed around, and everybody had got a good time marveling at the speed of events. In the morning, the house was quiet. Don Ying and Confucius wanted some peace and took breakfast into their rooms, which left Tony, Melanie, Faye, Ben, Anna, and Peter in the conservatory. Lydia had gone peacefully to sleep after all the different sounds and people, and Anna actually managed to put her in her cot and tiptoe out of the room. "What an amazing time we are having." Peter spoke out loud what they had all been thinking. Melanie couldn't remember ever being this excited. Tony suggested a walk to Melanie. They needed to process all the developments, and Melanie was so happy that she could share all her thoughts with him by themselves. He believed her. He was interested in her, and she felt so comfortable discussing Mia. Not only with him, but the whole group of them had talked about little else. The things she had learned from Mia recently left her with an overwhelming sense of complexity. It was so good to talk to Tony. "We are all so important, Tony." They had walked through the common, and Melanie had hardly looked up, just conveying her recent communications. "I should think so." Tony thought he sounded like his father, which made him laugh. "I know, it sounds funny, but with Lydia so multicultural, now our little Milton, appearing in the same year, 2012, because I do believe he will still be born at the end of this year. You see, we always knew this was the ending of one era and the beginning of another." "We always knew?" Tony had to laugh. She spoke with such certainty of these things. "Oh, don't be facetious now. Peter has also been into this stuff, for want of a better word. I know, because I myself studied Seth and Abraham Hicks and so on. Once I realized that I was different, and not mad. I looked into so much. So don't be so skeptical. There has been much talk of it, and of 2012. The end of the world, some said. Disaster movies. And if you had not heard about it until then, you sure did the last few months." "No days of darkness." "Exactly. I never said there to be an ending of the world. Interpretation. It has, however, been an ending of one era, 26,000 years, and the beginning of another. Like with all major shifts, you do not see it at the time, but things already move so much faster than ever before. In the centuries before this one, changes took time, hundreds of years, for society to develop. Look at the advancement in technology, mobile phones, communication. Our little ones will be born into a very different world than you were, and it has only been a couple of decades. With all of this, we're entering into an era of enlightenment, like we were saying last night. When we were born and so on, when we were born, yoga and so on was still considered a cult. Both Melanie and Tony loved yoga, something they only recently discovered, and Faye and her parents were regular Tai Chi practitioners, which got them into conversations about health and well-being. "Is this you or Mio talking?" Tony was laughing. He took Melanie into his arms. He could feel that she felt a weight of responsibility on her shoulders with all that insight Mio had given her for most of her life. "Good question." Melanie leaned into him and looked around. She had been hearing the birds, and now the afternoon drew in. She could hear the chorus. Looking around, she saw the trees in their beautiful spring green. Isn't spring just the best time? Look at all the growth. Not just outside. Tony felt so happy. He still felt like pinching himself every time he thought of Milton. I know, it is quite magical. All these different shades of green. I cannot think of the big picture right now. I cannot wait until I can feel something. It seems like a dream at the moment. How do you feel? How do you think I feel? He said. They were both laughing now. There was little chance of Tony feeling anything physical until he had Milton actually in his arms. I shall have to wait, a bump appearing and getting larger, and then have to rely on your accounting of the proceedings, and the odd, maybe, feeling here and there. Melanie started running across the grass, dragging Tony behind her. Let's run, I feel so happy, and need to move about. She dropped his hand and ran across the field with her coat flowing behind her. Tony loved her enthusiasm. Her enthusiasm for life. He increased his steps to follow her. She was still running ahead. He had to think of his mother's writing. The enthusiasm for life was a big theme in her writing. The synchronicities of events in the last 6 months had been something he had been pondering about, and it came up again when they were all talking about Lydia and Milton and David. It was all quite something. Anna and Peter had decided to spend some time in the garden when Melanie and Tony went out. Faye had a lie down, and Ben sat down at his laptop. I can hardly believe all this is happening. Peter sat down with his cup of tea. Anna had cleaned the kitchen whilst he took all the bins out. You mean Milton? Anna had been thinking about how lovely it was to have Peter actually here, helping her, and their talking was as easy as it had been on the phone these last few months. Yes, but not just Milton. Tony and I were talking about the novel his mum is writing, or has been writing on for so long. Some of the things she writes about is like the things Mia is talking about. I have been into this sort of stuff for ages, and I cannot believe that I am here and Melanie channels. I do not think that Don't you not think that this is amazing? Peter was shaking his head. He took out his tobacco pouch to roll a joint. Peter, just being here, having my own space, and thinking back of the utter despair I felt 6 months ago makes me feel amazing. Never mind having bumped into you. She sat down next to him and leaned her head against his shoulder. Never had she felt so sure about anything, how to make sense of it all. To come to England had been exciting, but she soon became so fearful. Every time she thought of it, she felt a chill. On the other hand, she would never have met this amazing man if she had stayed in Moscow. My time in this place as a young lad was definitely a changing point. He had finished and was lighting up. Leaning back, he felt that life had rarely been this satisfying. I cannot tell you how glad I am that I decided to celebrate New Year with my old friends. Not for one moment was I even thinking of starting a relationship. I never met anyone like you before, Anna. He took her into his arms. Being surrounded by love, he couldn't help joining the vibe, and they sank back into their settee. Faye had been snoozing on the bed with Lydia in her cot, and Ben working at his computer. He had put some quiet music on, and she found herself watching his back, his fingers racing on the keyboard. She looked at her watch and realized she must have slept for at least an hour. She could hear Lydia stirring, and Ben turned around. "Hello, you are awake?" Ben got up to stretch himself. He had finished an article and was glad that he had sent it off. "I think I am." Faye stretched herself and peered into the cot, where Lydia was doing the same. Her eyes opened and she looked straight at her mum. Her eyes lit up, and she smiled, her toothless mouth grinning. "Oh, you are so beautiful, my little one." Faye leaned into the cot, and Ben couldn't help picking her up. She smiled at him, and the